What is going on, everybody? It's me, it's your old pal, the original gamer OgStevieStrow, and we're back for another classic Atari 2600 video game as played on my ColecoVision Atari expansion adapter thingamabobby. And we're looking at Pac Man on the Atari 2600. And I've showed you a couple of Atari 2600 games that I think are kind of like gems. That are just really well done and really exploit the system and capture the essence of the game and don't do a bad job of embarrassing themselves. Well, Pac Man was one of those ones that was a little bit embarrassing. So you can see here in the little game over mode here, number one, the ghosts are very blinky. The maze isn't exactly the same. And the sounds aren't that good either. But for better or for worse, in 1981, this was one of the only few ways to get Pac Man at home. Atari was able to secure the license to make the program, and they did an okay job, but this was by far not one of the best Atari games. And I don't think anybody, even the hardcore Atari purists and fanboys, would probably not argue with me there. But it's part of history, and it's part of classic home console gaming type stuff. So let's go ahead and take a look at it, and we'll have a laugh along the way, right? So here's Pac Man. So one of the things you notice by Pac Man is that his mouth only moves sideways. Now, there are 4 different colored ghosts, if I'm not mistaken, which is similar to the arcade. But, I mean, the game is fairly laughable when you listen to the sounds. And they're not pellets. They're, you know, they could have just done small squares, but for whatever reason, the dots are actually rectangles. I'm not sure what influenced that design decision, but you know, they added an eye to Pac Man, which is kind of cool, but that's somewhat laughable. I mean, just about all of it's a little bit laughable, in a whimsical way, you know. And now the good news is I think, and I don't have the game, but I'm hoping to get like Miss Pac Man. I think they did a better job with Miss Pac Man and possibly even Pac Man Jr. But for their first attempt at making Pac Man, I would give this a C at best. You know, this is not even a B game. This is certainly not an A title. It's, you know, again, I fully realize there are many technical limitations to what this system can do, but Atari themselves and plenty of other third-party companies were able to exploit the machine despite its limitations and put some effort into the title. What it really boils down to is, are we going to put in effort, or are we just going to throw crap in a box and put it on a shelf? And sometimes that was the case. There was so much demand and so much pressure to get things done that we got to get her done, get her out there. Okay. Yeah, it was hard for me to tell if they were still blinking. So they do have the tunnels here. I just went through the tunnel. It is definitely nostalgic. It is definitely a sign of what gaming was like. You know, and so now what Atari did do is they did redeem themselves not only on some of the sequels on the 2600, but on their other platforms. So on the Atari 400 and Atari 800, you had a much better looking Pac Man. Later on, they would release a console that was known as the Atari 5200, which is twice the number of this 2600 one. I think that console was pretty much most of the same hardware that was in the Atari 400 computer. So the Atari 5200 gave you games as good as the Atari home computers. Atari home computers had some of the best games available in the 80s. The only problem with that is that an Atari home computer retailed for typically over $1,000. When the Atari 800 first came out, it was something like $1,100. So it wasn't the same thing as buying a $200 console. $200 was a decent chunk of change, but $1,000 was a lot of money in the 80s, and so that's one of the reasons why I never owned a Atari computer. My Radio Shack Color computer I bought for like $400 on layaway. It took a long time to save up for that. But $1,000 would have been completely out of reach for me as a kid because my parents weren't buying it, I was buying it, you know? So I just died here. So yeah, there were some good home Pac-Mans, but they were on much more expensive systems. This version here is fun, it's playable, It is the game. If you are a Pac Man addict and you had Pac Man fever, this would help scratch the itch. So there's a fruit. This would help scratch your Pac Man itch, but I'm not sure for how long. It's hard to put myself back in the mindset of being completely naive in the 80s, because I was a little bit scrutinous of stuff, because I had a home computer. I knew what things were capable of doing, so I probably would have been a little bit judgmental of this even in the 80s. But nonetheless, fun game, cute way to bring home the Pac-Man experience, and that's what we were trying to do. Why were there game consoles in the 80s? Because there were games in the arcades. People were putting so much money into the arcades. It was a huge industry, multi-million, if not billion-dollar industry, that everybody wanted a piece of that action. And so there were people who were making ways to play games at home, because America was hooked. America had video game fever. And Atari was one of those companies. And Pac-Man was such a huge title. Pac-Man is definitely in the top 10, if not top 2 or 3 video games in arcade history. A little bit of fruit there. And yeah, it's the game, right? You clear the maze of dots. You've got your 4 power pills, which give you temporary invulnerability against the ghosts. And then other than that, try not to die. Which I just did. So anyways, there you have it, folks. You have just witnessed the Atari version of Pac-Man for the Atari VCS 2600 home console system thing. And that's it. What else can I tell you? It was Pac-Man, right? You were the dude. You ate the dots. You avoided the ghost. Tried not to die. Although I died. And I died a lot. But yeah, this was fun. This was a fun little trip down history lane, video gaming history lane, memory lane, nostalgia lane, arcade action at the home. I have been the original gamer, VCS. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. If you got something you'd like to say, throw out a comment. I'd also appreciate it if you could share this video with your friends. I'll see y'all next time. Peace out, keep on gaming, and bye-bye, everybody.